Let's create an blog post generator agent together. An agent is this powerful concept that encapsulates all of the techniques that we talked about and help you save time significantly more than other methods that you can utilize with ChatGPT. First, we're going to use a version that works even with the free account, and then I'll show you how you can make it even better when you have a paid version of ChatGPT. And this is going to be a longer lesson than other lessons you may have already seen before, but I try to make it concise so that it's easy to follow. So the idea of creating an agent is that you're going to give all the instructions all at once, but asking me as a user to guide me through step-by-step process in writing a blog post. And I'm going to be writing a very, very long prompt, but you should be able to follow along with me. So let's get started. So typically agent follows a common theme, a common structure of effectively how you can write it. And this is my version that I'm going to show with the blog post agent. But once you learn how I do it, you can come up with other ways to do the same thing. So I'm going to start with an identity. And I'm going to use a markdown format. It just has additional characters so I can easily scan when I write. Because it's going to be long, that I want it to be more than just a bunch of text into an input field. So first, it's going to start with an identity and purpose. And I'm going to paste those inputs so that you don't have to see me type all these inputs. So the first input, here's an identity. You are an assistant who helps generate a blog post article for my personal website. And next, my blog post series is focused on delivering practical guide for leveraging generative AI technology from human-centric perspective. It is designed for professionals who struggle to get value from Gen AI due to lack of knowledge or mistrust of the technology. So what I've done so far is to give a context to an AI or an agent so that it understands what role that AI agent is supposed to play. Without this information, it could still do a good job, but imagine if I say you're like a junior assistant who is new to writing blog posts versus you are an expert writer at New York Times. It can have some difference in the output it generates, and it will be interesting homework for you to try these things and see how it can change. But to keep it concise, I'm going to go with my version of it. So you gave an identity and purpose so that agent understands how it's supposed to act. Now let's move on to the next step. It's defining writing style. So I'm going to copy and paste again with the pounds in front, writing style. So I'm going to again give some context. First context is the tone of the voice is clear and structured and informative. My next writing instruction: avoid technical jargon unless necessary and focus on making the information accessible to a broad audience. I want to make sure my blog post isn't just written for someone who understands generative AI. I actually want to write for someone who is less familiar. That's why I want to avoid jargon if possible. And next instruction is keep sentences short and to the point. I don't want any wordy text just for the heck of it. And then last writing style instruction that I have is use 8th grader reading level. Now this is some advanced concepts that help you control the level of the writing that matches. And in this case, I'm using English. So 8th grader reading level in English has a certain instructional purpose. Then let's say I'm writing in Japanese and maybe I need to specify this in different ways. But you can say like, teach me like I'm 5. But in this case, I want it to be 8th grader reading level where it still can sound professional, but not using difficult words. And this is maybe similar to avoiding jargon unless needed. So what I did is defining the writing style. So everything that agent writes gets influenced by this writing style, and make sure that everything is in accordance to my instructions. And this is where you can customize it to match your brand voice. Maybe you want it to be very technical, or maybe you want it to be more fun and comedic. So please try different things to see what suit your need. And we're going to the next section, structure. Structure essentially defines the bullet post structure. Do I want intros? Do I want like a 3 paragraphs followed by maybe like another 5 paragraphs explaining something? In this case, I'm going to keep it really simple and straight. I actually want to start with a quick introduction of the technology because that's what my blog post is about. Before I go rabbit hole of explaining how technology affects people, I want to give an introduction so everyone is on the same page. And then next, I want to have what challenges are people facing when interacting with technology. So this will be, let's say, a paragraph or 2 that describes the challenges that people may be facing. And that sets a stage into the next section of what solutions can be used to solve the challenge. So it sets up introduction, challenges, and solutions. And then lastly, I want to close my bullet post with a closing thought or question to encourage engagement and interaction. So here I am setting up a structure that's fairly short, maybe compared to many other blog posts that you may have seen in the wild, where you could have like 20 different paragraphs that goes on and on and on. But I want it to be easy to digest. I want it to make it so that you can just read within a few minutes when you have a gap of time in between maybe meetings, or maybe you're commuting on a bus and you just feel like reading some short articles that's informative. So I set the structure and going back to review from the beginning, I set up identity purpose so agent knows what it's supposed to be, what it's supposed to act as. And I set up writing style so that it knows how to write, what tone it should use, what kind of things that it should focus on. And in the structure that I'm giving, that this is the final output structure that I'm looking for. Now, up until now, this is just all the instructions or background information that I'm setting up as the baseline context. Where the agents gets really powerful is your ability to define the execution steps that AI will be able to follow through. So we're going to start a new section, and I'm going to just use 3- to give a big, area of like, okay, here's the background, and now this is the beginning of something different and a new major section. I'm going to copy and paste this instruction that says, before writing an article, follow the interview steps below. Unless the answers to the questions are already provided in previous step, be sure to pause and ask each question and wait for my answer. So what I did is that before you help me get started in writing article, I want you to look at steps below, which I'm about to define. So let's start defining the steps. Step 1. Oh, actually it did not copy paste. I'm going to do it one more time. Step 1, gather info and context for a compelling intro. So remember I asked it to do introduction to technology, and I'm going to give an instruction to say, ask me. Let's start by introducing the technology. Briefly, what is this technology about? So when we start the interaction with this agent, it's going to first ask me, what is this technology about? And I have a chance to provide my input. And on top of that, I want to instruct and say, after you receive my answer, please perform an internet search to gather more information about the technology. Because maybe, let's say I want to talk about prompt engineering. I don't want to type a lot of words explaining how the prompt engineering works. Maybe I could have done some pre-work into some document and summarize all my findings that I can copy and paste. But something like this is pretty easy to look up on internet and summarize using generative AI tools instead of me taking notes, unless some information is coming from some proper proprietary knowledge, like your company document or maybe some concept in the book you read. A lot of informations are readily available. So I'm just going to ask AI to do some background research on the technology that I mentioned. And after I give it an answer, AI knows to move to next section. Step 2, gather challenges people are facing about the technology. So maybe I'm talking about generative AI and people don't have enough knowledge about the prompt engineering. So it's not, people are not able to get the answer they're looking for. So again, I'm going to add a new line that says, ask me what challenges are people facing with this technology? And later I will explain exactly what I mentioned. And then I'm also going to add and say, after you receive my answer, help me expand on them so that if I just say something short in a sentence, it can be expanded on based on my answer to add more meat. And then I'm going to now ask it to move into step 3, ask for solutions. Since I've stated a challenge, now I want to answer some solutions that can be used. So ask me what can solve that challenge. What things can help solve the challenge. And this might be where I would say you need to take my course to learn about prompt engineering. So I'm going to say, after you receive my answer, add any other related information you can find online to back it up. Maybe if I suggest that you need to take my online course, hopefully maybe it will back my argument by saying online courses are effective ways to learn and upskill your knowledge to combat the challenges that you have. Now let's move on to next section. Based on all these information that I provided, step 4 is writing and conclusion. And then I'm going to have an AI say this. Let me write up a conclusion. And this is more of a UX, the user experience of interacting with an agent. When I'm interacting with an agent, I might already know what to expect out of the interactions. But if I make this agent available for other people to use, then they don't know how it should be interacting with it. So instead of AI agent just performing tasks, I want AI agent to also say certain things so that users know, okay, I'm at this step of writing up a conclusion and it says, let me write up a conclusion. So I guess AI is going to write it. Unlike the previous sections where I'm asking agent to essentially interview me and waiting for my input. In this case, I'm just waiting for AI to write up a conclusion. So that's a little UX tip that can be really useful in guiding users through interacting with your agent. So after it announces what it's going to do, actually do the work of wrap up and write a conclusion. And then for an extra point, I'm going to ask it to also include a question to engage your audience. What is your perspective on this technology? So that it doesn't just end with the dry conclusion, that there's more opportunity for users to leave a comment. Let's say if I write this blog post and my readers can comment on my blog. So after it writes a conclusion, the natural next step is in writing up a first draft. So step 5, write the first draft. And then I'm going to have AI announce this off. Thank you. Now let's summarize everything into a draft. Again, in this step, I'm asking AI to just do the work of writing a draft because I've already finished giving my input. And then it's going to now write up the draft based on this new instructions. Write a first draft that I can review. Start with a bold statement that catches the reader's attention to start reading further, because otherwise people might lose interest right away and then do not finish reading. So these are some additions that you'll learn over time that may or may not be helpful to include in your blog post. And this is a technique that you're going to build up and eventually become your proprietary knowledge that no one else has access to, or very few people might have access to. And you can take an advantage and be on top of the game compared to your competitors. So after it writes a draft, suppose I should be able to review because I said I write it so I can review it. So without explicit instruction, it should ask me to review, and we'll actually interact with the AI agent later to confirm all these steps. So now step 6, it's getting longer, right? But we're almost done. Come up with catchy titles. After it has finished writing draft and I've approved it, I want it to come up with titles because titles makes people curious. Let's explore a few catchy titles to grab the reader's attention. And then in the instruction, I'm going to say, come up with 10 catchy titles. They should be catchy, but still clear on what the article is about. So I don't just want clickbait. It should still be clear without clicking what it is about. But nonetheless, I want it to be very catchy. And then, of course, once the title is done, I need an excerpt, right? So I'm going to say, write an excerpt of the article in less than 300 characters long so that I can provide an article excerpt before the user have to dive in and read everything, and can also help with the SEO. And all I'm saying is, here's our excerpt of the article, which I'm asking an agent to announce because I want an agent to just write it up. At this point, it shouldn't need my input into writing it. And then here's the last step. Often I post my article that I write on LinkedIn, so I want agent to suggest me LinkedIn hashtags. And I'm going to have agent announce, here are LinkedIn hashtags you could use. And my instruction is generate a list of relevant LinkedIn hashtags that I can use in a single line ready for copy and paste. Otherwise, it might give me a list in the bullet point format that is a little bit difficult because then I have to make it a single line to make it fit to the article. So I'm going to actually copy this as a backup. It would be better to actually construct this in separate notebook that just autosave so that you don't have to lose the progress in case something happens. So I'm going to hit submit. And then now you've essentially created an agent that is able to read this background information and then able to read and understand that I want step-by-step interactions. I don't want you to just answer something and be done and I have to instruct the next step. I want you to keep a contextual memory of all the steps I want you to go through. So an agent says, got it, let's start by gathering context for the article. Gather info and context for compelling intro. Let's start by introducing technology briefly. What is this technology about? Okay, so step 1. The technology is generative AI, in parentheses, large language model, especially focused on AI's ability to understand natural language and help generate content. So this is a super brief introduction of generative AI. I'm obviously not referencing any articles out there to kind of add more meat to the intro, but hopefully AI will be able to do an internet search. Yes, it did. If you remember back in the step 1, I said, after you receive my answer, please perform an internet search to gather more information about the technology. Then it found this information. Great, let me gather more details about GenAI. GenAI, particularly LLM, are advanced AI system designed to understand and generate human-like text. Great, it has some more context. And at this point, I can keep asking it to add more information about, let's say, pros and cons of generative AI. Actually, maybe let's do that. Can you gather information about pros and cons of using LLM? Now, you notice that this is not a step that I described earlier in the process. I'm obviously kind of deviating from the main thread of just trying to finish the blog post. I'm taking a detour with an agent into learning more about pros and cons of using LLM. And after I get this information, I'm going to ask, okay, great. Let's move on to next step so that it knows to now get out of this detour and get back into the main instructions of writing the blog post. And next step should be about writing challenges. There you go. Step 2, gather challenges people are facing about that technology. Okay, so I'm going to say, people are facing challenges interacting with LLMs due to lack of knowledge in prompt engineering, which helps human provide instructions to LLMs to get the response that people are looking for. Now that's, again, brief explanation of a challenge, but I did ask, remember, to expand on the challenge based on my short introduction. So now it's able to say lack of knowledge, that's something I already stated, but overwhelming feature sets, trial and error learning, yep, that's true. Mistrust in output quality, okay, yeah, these are all the challenges that people face. Great. Would you like to add more challenges or move on to discussing solutions? It remembers, right? It remembers to pause and ask for a feedback, or, hey, let's move forward because maybe I don't have more challenges to add. Let's move on to solutions. Step 3, what can help solve the challenge? What solutions can help address the lack of knowledge in prompt engineering and improve how people interact with LLMs? Notice that this introduction or the little UX of asking me the question is actually personalized based on the above output. It's not just repeating, let's say, what did I say? Ask me what can help solve the challenge, right? It changed this to be more specific into matching about the prompt engineering. That's really smart. And that's a little nuggets of UX that goes a long way. So great. Let's say people should take my online course titled Prompt Engineering Foundations to learn the fundamentals on how to interact with LLMs, understand its strength and limitations, real world use cases, and how to set up AI agent to save time and streamline their work. And then hopefully it would summarize my raw thoughts into more structured output. Great. Take a structured course. Use templates and examples, implement iterative learning, promote AI literacy, supportive tools. Great. Would you like to add more solutions or shall I move on to writing conclusion? Okay, I think I like the suggestion so far. And, it did expand on it a little bit. And if I didn't like it, I can say, let's just remove the number, let's say 3, 4, and 5. Got it. Here's the refined list of solutions. Great. So now it just has the solutions of number 1 and number 2. And then it's asking, shall we move to conclusion? Yes. And you've seen me interact with AI in different ways where sometimes I am very specific in saying, hey, let's move on to the next step. Or even more specifically saying, let's move on to the solution. And then in this case, I'm just saying, yes, AI is really smart. It can understand all the kinds of responses that you have. Conclusion, Gen AI can holds immense potential. And by taking a structured course like Prompt Engineering Foundations, users can gain confidence and skills to interact effectively with LLMs. That's great. Great self-promotion. Would you like me to write the first draft of the article? Yes, I'm going to write the article. So far, it's doing a great job just following my original intent, structure, and all the execution steps. And it's just drafting everything up. And this is where you should just read and make sure the draft looks good. But just for the time's sake, I'm just going to say, yes, it reflects my vision. Let's move on to the next step. Step 6, let's explore a few catchy titles. Ooh, great. So unlocking Gen AI, mastering prompt engineering for productivity, the key to AI success, why prompt engineering matters. From frustration to efficiency, learn to work smarter with AI. So all these titles you can read, and you can even like brainstorm on and say like, I like the direction of number 1. Let's say I like the direction of number 1. Can you come up with more like this? And then you can iterate on and it will still remember the place in the execution step. And let's say, okay, maybe I like number 4. I like number 4. Let's move on to the next step. Then it's going to say, yep, it just created an excerpt for the article. Generative AI can transform how we work, but many struggles to unlock its full potential. Great. And you can read and revise everything you want to do here. But I want to move on to the next step. Let's go to next. And you should give me a nice hashtag, Gen AI, prompt engineering AI for productivity. Notice how it all relates back to the content of the article and all the catchy titles that we've generated. So we just went through the whole process of pasting this giant prompt, asking it to comprehend the context and background, and then walk me as a user through the step of writing the blog post. And this is a secret power of an agent that can, that is basically a smart entity that can work alongside with you. It's almost like hiring a smart assistant that can do a lot for you, and combining lots of the concepts that we talk about in this whole throughout the course. And able to package everything into one. And this time I did just use this one long prompt, and this is something you can copy and paste every time you want to write, let's say, write blog post series. You can just keep this in Notepad and then paste this as the beginning of the step and then walk through step by step. But if you have the Plus ChatGPT version, you can create what's called GPT. Essentially, GPT is a packaged up version of what I just did. Let's say I'm going to call it blog post generator. It helps write my personal website blog series. And then all I'm doing here is pasting all the instructions that I wrote in the other tab. And then I'm going to specify conversation starters. And I'm just going to say, let's begin. It's a good general purpose way. And then I can upload a knowledge. A knowledge might be, let's say, my past writing that I've published in the past. So let's say I'm going to my downloads, and then I can upload a file that contains past newsletter articles that I wrote, as a sort of way to instruct, hey, look at the writing style examples, the kind of things I wrote in the past, as contextual knowledge that does not fit into the instructions because it will be too long to copy and paste all the blog post article examples. Then I can decide to enable web search if I want AI to do internet search, which I always recommend. I can also ask it to generate a cover image, but personally I create my own image, so I don't need this to be enabled, but you can leave it on. And then code interpreter, data analysis, if you want to analyze charts or generate chart, that you can use it in the blog post. And then there's some other additional advanced concepts, but I'm just going to skip the process. And in essence, once you create this agent, or GPT is what they call it in ChatGPT world, without you having to copy and paste all these instructions, you can just start interacting with the agent over and over. So you're able to create a nice package of it. And the benefit is that if you had a team account within ChatGPT, or actually you don't need to have it anymore, I think as a Plus user, you can create GPT and make this agent available for the other users to interact with it. So let's say someone else needs to help you write a blog post. Instead of you interacting with this agent, you can ask someone else to do it. So hopefully you're able to see the power of this agent. And I'm just going to do a quick introduction here. I want to talk about Gen AI, specifically LLM, and the rest follows the same exact process on the other tab that we've looked at. So I'm not going to bother going through the process, but hopefully you're able to see this powerful concept of setting up an AI agent. And I want you to try creating something similar. And I want you to also try creating something that would personally help you out. Maybe it's not a blog post. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a social media content that you need help creating. Or maybe you're trying to write up some weekly summary reports for your client or your supervisor. And get into the practice of writing. And there are some nuances that you will have to learn to really up the quality of your prompt and adding more details. But those are the practice that you have to do, and you'll gain more knowledge over time. And in the future, I am planning to release more intermediate and advanced courses so that you can follow through some of the techniques that it goes beyond the basics of setting up a great functioning AI agent, but extending its capability even more and having more control over the output that you're expecting. So hopefully you'll have a great time with setting up an AI agent.